David Amess.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I apologise to you and the House for not having been present at the start of the debate. I have to tell the House I'm a member of the Backbench Business Committee, so I'm delighted that my honourable friend, the member for Thanet North, and her colleagues were successful in the debate. Unfortunately, I had thought that the debate was going to start at 1:30. I have been entertaining a newly elected member of the United States Congress, Mr. George Holding, who represents the 13th District in North Carolina, and together with Congressman Robert Pittenger. I am sorry.
This causes some difficulty in the chamber. We've now had 3 members in a row taking part in a debate that they haven't heard on the basis that they were busy and doing something else. And as all honourable members know, in taking part in a debate, one has to make choices about whether they're in the chamber or doing other things. On this occasion, I have called each member, but I just want to put on the record that the convention of the House is, if you wish to speak in a debate, that is your priority, and you should be here to do it. And the honourable gentleman, being the 3rd member in a row to give a reason why he wasn't here, gives me the opportunity just to make that point, because I haven't had the benefit of hearing the other speakers. Mr. David Amess.
Since 1983, I absolutely agree with everything you have said, Madam Deputy Speaker. Throughout my time in Parliament, I've always supported sensible animal welfare measures introduced by all the organisations. Indeed, if anyone had any time on their hands, they could look in Hansard and they could see that my views on animal welfare have been pretty consistent.
I'm most grateful. I understand his reasons for being late. Does he agree with me that doing television is probably a poorer excuse for not being here?
Order. We're really not going to go down this route. This is a serious subject, and I expect members to continue to behave in a serious way. So, Ms. Doherty, thank you, but we won't have that answered. And Mr. Amess, you can continue with your remarks and ignore the intervention.
The late Member of Parliament for Newham North West, Tony Banks, of course, was a great champion of animal welfare measures, and I certainly would stand shoulder to shoulder with him as far as this debate is concerned. And it does sadden me, Madam Deputy Speaker, that here, nearly 30 years on, we are having to revisit this issue. I was flattered last year that Dodds awarded me something as a charity champion for animal welfare and environment, which I accepted on behalf of all the Animal Welfare Kingdom. Indeed, the Prevention Against Cruel Tethering Act is in my name. I also supported the bills regarding the welfare of dogs. The list is endless. But I want briefly, Madam Deputy Speaker, to talk about the issues concerning the live export of animals. I'm pleased that it is not a growing industry, that it's shrinking. I note that the transport of live calves, for example, has fallen from 93,000 in 2007 to just 7,000 in 2009. So this is real progress. And I hope that in time, this sort of debate will no longer be necessary. As far as this debate introduced by my honourable friend is concerned, I would wish to associate myself with the views of the Royal Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals, who I think are a wonderful charity and hopefully will continue to promote sensible animal welfare issues. Now, the RSPCA are very much of the view that they want to see an end to long-distance transport of live animals with the aim of carcass-only trade. They want to see a maximum 8-hour journey time for all animals travelling for slaughter, which I know the House has already heard. They want to change the current law to allow ports to refuse to partake in the transport of live animals trade. And finally, for the costs of veterinary and animal health inspections alongside other costs to be borne by the organisations involved in the trade and not by the taxpayer.
I disagree on animal experts and various issues around that. Would the honourable gentleman perhaps concede that sometimes animals can get exported for breeding purposes and not just for slaughter, and therefore that the closing down altogether, as he might wish, might have other consequences that are perhaps not in the full focus of this debate at the moment?
Well, I do recognise, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there are honourable members who quite rightly represent all sorts of interests. And I have said, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I support responsible animal welfare issues. I wouldn't want to use this opportunity introduced by my honourable friend to bash farmers and the farming community. So I do absolutely understand what the honourable member has said and others have said. But
I'm most grateful. He, like I think, am a supporter of banning the use of circuses in wild animals. And one of the solutions to the ban is to then export those wild animals to new homes. If I understand this correctly, one of the unintended consequences of a blanket ban would actually mean that we couldn't find new homes for those wild animals.
I cannot believe for a moment that that would be the result if this motion was supported. But I rather think, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to stick to my script, as there are other things which have been happening in the chamber which obviously I wasn't present for. So I think I would like to stick to the specific issue that you rightly have said, Madam Deputy Speaker, we should talk about. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to see long-distance transport of live animals ended. There is a clear case for the ending of the transport of live animals altogether. I think it is a very cruel practice which leads to the distress or worse, the death of animals on a regular basis. Indeed, recently we've seen those terrible pictures of little puppies dead and rare exotic fish also dead in their containers. Inspectors, when they have been able to investigate, found one animal, for instance, with a ripped horn, which had to be euthanised. In another incident, one vehicle had to offload all of its sheep, and 46 had to be euthanised for various reasons. Madam Deputy Speaker, any practice which regularly inflicts such pain on living creatures, and worse than that, regularly leads to the death of animals, I think should be ended as soon as possible. Now, I do not think this is an impossible dream. More often than not, animals are now slaughtered in their country of origin and then transported to whichever country they are going to. This is a much more humane way to approach the transportation of animals. Another reason that it is right to pursue the ending of this practice is that even if we manage to transport live animals effectively and safely, we cannot ensure that the countries the animals arrive in live up to our high standards. Now, Compassion on World Farming has issued a report which shows that many member states do not provide penalties which are, and I quote, effective, proportionate and dissuasive. While some countries have shown signs of improvement recently, namely the Czechoslovakian Republic, Italy and Romania, the European Union Food and Veterinary Office indicates these and other countries still need substantial improvements in levels of enforcement. These two reasons, the cruel nature of the transportation and the worrying lack of enforcement in other European Union member states, are reason enough for wanting the practice of live transportation stopped altogether. That being said, until that aim is fulfilled, there are other curbs which could be applied to the industry which will protect any transported animals. For instance, I think there should be a maximum 8-hour journey time. Journeys for calves can be up to 19 hours For horses and pigs, they can be up to 24 hours. And for horses and pigs, 29 hours can be an incredibly long time before a 24-hour rest is afforded to them. I think this is cruel. To make any creature travel for 29 hours before having a rest, I think is very, very cruel indeed. At the very least, a middle ground should be met, which enforces shorter breaks after 8 hours, and then a longer 24-hour rest at the current limit. I then wish to move on to the subject of ports. In a separate yet heavily related issue, DEFRA states on their website that when dealing with animals, it is important the vehicle and loading and unloading facilities are designed and constructed to maintain to avoid injury and suffering. While this may be the case on road vehicles, I have concerns about the UK ports which animals leave from and about the ships which transport these animals. According to the RSPCA, the Joe Line, which is an old Russian tanker, currently transports animals from Ramsgate. It is too slow and overly exposed to poor weather conditions. I urge this House not to accept such poor conditions for animals who deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. On the topic of ports, it appears that Ramsgate, Ipswich and Newhaven do not all currently live up to the standards set out in the Animal Welfare Act 2006, Article 23. Ports currently have no choice but to opt out of the transportation of live animals due to the 1847 Harbours, Docks and Piers Clause Act. I believe in strongly choice, and ports which currently do not have the right facilities to transport animals to a high standard must be able to choose whether they wish to partake in this practice. Now, as far as veterinary costs are concerned, I have to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the economy has gone through some tough times at the moment. And the area that I represent, Southend West, where there are a lot of elderly people, animals are their lives. Animals are everything to them. And we shouldn't trivialise how important animals are to these people. And the costs of veterinary bills can be very, very high indeed. It is the taxpayer which foots the bill for veterinary checks on animals in live transportation. If this cost was shifted to those involved in the industry, and I know that honourable members who have farming interests will say, yes, this is yet another burden passed on to them, but I believe that not only would the taxpayer be saved money during these hard times, but the industry would be incentivised to look after their animals well, as the cost of veterinary bills could be very high otherwise. Labelling. The last topic, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to touch on is that of labelling. It has come to my attention that a sheep or cow can be currently born, raised and fed here in England, transported to France, and once slaughtered, the beef can be labelled produce of France. If, as I hope, the European Union agrees to stop this practice, surely the incidence of live transportation will fall as the pressure to have and eat homegrown food in each European member state grows. So I would urge colleagues in the House to support any such labelling law. I hope in my brief speech I've highlighted a number of the issues that I feel strongly which haven't already been covered concerning the suffering of animals. Maximum journey times must come down if at all possible. Ports must be able to opt out if they do not feel that they have the resources to adequately look after animals. Veterinary costs should not be met at the expense of the public purse, and labelling issues needs to be addressed. I believe, Madam Deputy Speaker, we must look after animals to the best of our ability. The fact we need this debate at all sadly reminds me of the quote attributed to Frederick the Great: "The more I see of men, the better I like my dog." And then I think of the quote of Gandhi: "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated." I said, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I entered this place 30 years ago. We are hardly pressed for time in this place. We used to sit until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We used to sit for 5 days a week. We certainly put the hours in. And I do think that honourable members of Parliament, who no doubt in their constituencies love to pat dogs, like to see cats, are very, very concerned about their constituents who feel that their animals are important, should actually demonstrate their support for animals by supporting this motion that my honourable friend has introduced. I would have hoped that most honourable members of this place feel that transporting live animals in horrendous conditions is totally unacceptable. We live in an era where we no longer write letters to each other. Members of Parliament respond to emails, they respond to blogging, Facebook and other matters. There's no longer the amount of personal contact that there used to be. I was privileged recently to attend 2 carol services for animals, and I feel very, very strongly, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the quality of our nation should be increasingly judged by how we treat the animal kingdom.